In October 2025, something happened that most people completely missed. Senior executives from Samsung Electronics flew out to meet directly with officials from SpaceX. Not for a press conference. Not for a photo opportunity. This was a working meeting, engineers and executives sitting across a table, reviewing progress on a chip that would allow a smartphone to connect directly to satellites in orbit. No towers, no Wi-Fi, no infrastructure on the ground at all. Think about what that means for a second. Right now, your phone works because it finds a signal from a tower, a physical structure, usually within a few kilometers of wherever you are. When you leave that range, you lose signal. You have experienced this, everyone has. You are driving through a stretch of highway, your navigation cuts out. You are suddenly very aware of how dependent you are on something you cannot see and cannot control. Now imagine a system where the tower is not on the ground, it is in space. It is always above you. It moves, yes. Satellites in low Earth orbit travel at extraordinary speed. But there are enough of them, positioned across enough of the sky, that the coverage never disappears. That is what SpaceX has been quietly building with its Starlink constellation. And Samsung is building the chip that will let your phone speak directly to it. At the center of this entire project is a new kind of modem, the component inside your phone that manages wireless connections. Most people have never thought about what a modem actually does. Think of it like a translator. When your phone wants to talk to a network, the modem is the part that converts your phone's language into something the network understands, and vice versa. Every call, every text, every video you stream, it passes through the modem first. The modem Samsung is building is different in one critical way. It does not just react to the network. It predicts it. Here is why that matters. A satellite in low Earth orbit is moving extremely fast, much faster than any cell tower, which of course does not move at all. When your phone tries to connect to something moving that quickly across the sky, maintaining a stable link is genuinely difficult. It is like trying to have a conversation with someone running past you at full speed. Traditional hardware would struggle to keep up. This new chip uses built-in artificial intelligence processing to anticipate where the satellite will be, not just where it is. It stays ahead of the movement. The result is a connection that remains stable even as the satellite arcs overhead and another one takes its place. That predictive capability is not a small upgrade. It is a fundamental rethinking of how mobile hardware interacts with space-based networks. By late 2025, this technology moved out of the laboratory and into mass production. The modem supports high-speed fifth-generation connectivity, what we call 5G, while simultaneously handling multiple satellite communication standards on a single chip. In plain terms, one chip doing the work that previously required separate hardware for separate systems. For the first time, voice calls, real text messages, and actual data transmission through satellites are becoming practical features in everyday consumer devices. Not emergency-only features, not backup systems, primary communication tools. And this is where the story gets sharper because there is an important distinction to understand here. Some phones already have satellite features. You may have heard about this. Apple introduced emergency SOS via satellite in 2022. A genuinely useful feature. If you are stranded, you can send a message for help even without cell service. But notice what that feature is designed for. Emergencies. Short messages. The absolute minimum required to potentially save your life. What Samsung is building is not that. It is the difference between installing a fire extinguisher in a kitchen and building a fully functional kitchen. One is for crisis situations. The other is for daily life. The new system supports full voice communication, messaging, and data through satellites. Connectivity moves from being a backup option to being a primary channel. The satellite is no longer a last resort. It is simply the network. That shift is seismic, and the traditional telecom industry understands exactly what it implies. Here is where the story gets a little uncomfortable for some very powerful companies. The business model of every major telecom operator in the world is built on infrastructure ownership. They own the towers. They own the cables. They own the spectrum, the invisible frequencies your phone uses to communicate. They have invested billions to own these things, and they charge you every single month to access them. That is the deal. You pay because you have no choice. Where else are you going to go? You need their towers to make your phone work. Now imagine a world where your phone connects directly to satellites. where the network is not owned by a company that built towers in your city, but by a company that launched infrastructure into orbit. The geographic monopoly that every national telecom operator has relied on for decades begins to erode. This is not speculation. This is the direction the technology is pointing. And the reason Samsung and SpaceX are moving so deliberately, so quietly, is that they know exactly who is watching and what the response will be. There's another layer to this chip that deserves attention, and it speaks to how seriously these engineers are thinking about the future. The modem incorporates advanced encryption methods designed to withstand threats from quantum computing. If that phrase sounds abstract, here's a simple way to think about it. The encryption that protects your messages and calls today is based on mathematics that would take current computers thousands of years to break. Quantum computers, still in early stages of development, could potentially break that same encryption in minutes. That day has not arrived yet, but it is coming. Samsung's engineers are building protection against that threat now, while it is still theoretical. That is not cautious engineering. That is visionary engineering. They are designing hardware not for today's network environment, but for the one that will exist 10 or 20 years from now. A chip built in 2025 that is already prepared for 2045. That is the level of long-term thinking at work here. And in early 2026, the system was tested outside controlled laboratory conditions. Engineers demonstrated satellite communication using commercial-grade hardware across standardized network environments. Not simulated. Not theoretical. Real hardware, real satellites, real signal. The result confirmed what the project team had been working toward. This technology is not a concept anymore. It is operational. Standards compliance was also confirmed, meaning this system can integrate across multiple networks and manufacturers. It is not a locked proprietary ecosystem. It is designed to work at scale across the industry. That matters because it signals intent. This is not a feature for one phone or one market. This is infrastructure for a new era of connectivity. Step back and look at the full picture for a moment. We are watching the early formation of an entirely new communication layer. One that sits above traditional infrastructure. Instead of relying on towers and cables, things that require land, permits, construction, and maintenance, devices will connect directly to orbiting networks. The smartphone becomes, by default, a global communication terminal. Not a device that works in some places. A device that works everywhere. The implications for daily life are more significant than they might first appear. Reliable connectivity in remote areas can change safety outcomes during natural disasters. It can give small agricultural communities access to market information that was previously unavailable to them. It can allow a person on a boat, far from shore, to call their family with the same ease as someone sitting in a city apartment. Communication has always been unevenly distributed. Geography determined access. Wealth determined quality. The satellite era, if it develops as this technology suggests, begins to flatten that inequality in a fundamental way. Not the honest part, because this channel does not sell you optimism without friction. Satellite communication consumes significant power. Battery efficiency is going to be a real constraint in early devices. If your phone is actively communicating with a satellite, it is working harder than when it connects to a nearby tower. That has consequences for how long your phone lasts between charges. Early adopters will feel this limitation. Widespread next-generation satellite networks are also still several years from full deployment. The coverage exists in many areas, but achieving the kind of dense, global network required for truly seamless satellite connectivity everywhere, that is a years-long infrastructure project, not a firmware update. The technology is real. The direction is clear. A timeline is measured in years, not months. So what does this mean for you, practically speaking? Do not cancel your phone plan tomorrow. That would be premature. But pay attention to how quickly the conversation around connectivity is changing. Notice which companies are investing in satellite infrastructure and which ones are lobbying against it. Notice the difference between a feature that serves you and a business model that extracts from you. The telecom industry has, for decades, made decisions based on profitability over coverage. That is not a moral judgment, it is a structural reality. Companies build where returns are highest. The result is a world where connectivity is a privilege of geography and income rather than a basic utility. What Samsung and SpaceX are building challenges that structure directly. Whether the challenge succeeds depends on engineering, regulation, adoption, and competition, none of which are guaranteed. But the momentum is real. The pieces are in motion. And for the first time in a long time, the question of who gets to be connected is being answered differently. The lesson here is not about smartphones. It is about infrastructure and power. Every era of communication technology has had a moment where the old gatekeepers lost their grip. The printing press broke the church's monopoly on information. The internet broke the television industry's monopoly on attention. Satellite connectivity is positioned to break the telecom industry's monopoly on access. It does not happen overnight. It does not happen without resistance, but it happens. Your phone reaching quietly into orbit to find a signal, without asking permission from a tower, without paying a geographic premium, without leaving anyone out because they were born in the wrong place. That is more than a technical achievement. That is a different kind of world. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, subscribe to the channel. There is a lot more coming, and the stories that matter most are often the ones no one is talking about yet.